Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. May 1st, 2018.
The Kuhner Report is powered by Kelly Financial Services, cleaning up your financial bull. Get the peace of mind that you deserve at Kelly Financial Services.
2:05 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends, tune in for the WRKO box office cue to call Thursday at 8:30, 2:30, and 5:30 for your chance to win a pair of tickets to the Boston Pops Leonard Bernstein Centennial Tribute Tuesday, May 29th at 8 p.m. at Symphonies Hall in Boston. For tickets and information, visit bso.org. Okay, my friends. So, I mentioned this yesterday, but now there have been some very dramatic developments since just in the last 24 hours. Essentially now, this country is now allowing, and there's no other word for it, invaders to cross almost with impunity across our southern border. The Border Patrol has now made a stunning admission. The Central American migrant caravan that for the last 6 weeks has made its way from the Mexico-Guatemalan border all the way through Mexico El Norte with the full support of the Mexican government. Now remember, in Mexico, if you cross into Mexico illegally, the Mexican government, they have some of the toughest laws on the books. You are either put in prison, you're either jailed for violating their immigration laws, or you are immediately deported. There's no catch and release in Mexico. The Mexican government instead allowed them to cross into Mexico, provided them with buses, trains, even a police escort, right up to the Tijuana-San Diego sector, where now they are starting to pour in. According now to the latest media reports, the Border Patrol yesterday was trying to, they were saying that they weren't going to process any of these asylum seekers. Now they are beginning to process them. So there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them who are now being processed by ICE, by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They will then be detained maybe for about 24, 48 hours. And then they will be released for a court date a couple of years from now, in which almost none of them will ever show up. So they are being processed. Others have just simply crossed the border. As they've crossed the border, they are now openly waving Honduran flags. I talked about this yesterday, and Pueblo San Frontera, the American Open Borders Advocacy Group that helped to fund the caravan, that helped give them American lawyers, teaching them how to file for asylum, how to do their paperwork, what to say to U.S. Customs and Border agents. They were cheering them on, waving the Honduran flag as well as the asylum seekers and the illegal immigrants were singing the Honduran national anthem. Now, to me, this is clear what's going on. This is an invasion. That's what this is. Because immigration is a two-way street. Immigration requires not just the willingness of the immigrant to come to a country, let's just say the United States, but the host country, i.e. America, wanting them and accepting them into their country legally. What they did is they just ran roughshod. And they are exploiting loopholes in our immigration system, and they're exploiting asylum claims or asylum laws to make a mockery of our immigration system. And now all of them are being admitted, almost all of them, almost all. And they are now going to be entitled, by the way, to full welfare benefits. EBT, welfare, food stamps, public housing, you name it, free healthcare, free education. For the next couple of years, at a minimum, all of us are going to be on the hook for it. Now, the Trump administration announced that the Border Patrol did arrest 11 of the 700 for illegally crossing into our country. And as I read this, I was shocked. I'm like, that's it? They got 2 Guatemalans, 2 Hondurans, 2 Salvadorians, and then a bunch of Mexicans. In total, 11. 11 out of the 800 who have now crossed into our borders, crossed into our country. And I'm thinking, honestly, can I be serious? When I read that story, I'm like, just let them in. I mean, really, you're only going to arrest 11 out of 700 to 800 who are just with impunity, violating our sovereignty, flouting our laws, crossing our borders, and making a mockery of our immigration system. So they've only arrested 11 of the 700 to 800. They are now either in the country or they are being processed as I speak. All this, by the way, paid for by you and me. They're getting showers, they're getting meals, they're getting all the hydration, the drinks, they're getting new change of clothes, and then bus tickets to wherever they want to go. Now, when I came to America as an immigrant, I didn't wave the Canadian flag at the border. I didn't sing the Canadian anthem at the border. When you're waving the Honduran flag and you're singing the Honduran national anthem as you're crossing into a country, that's not the act of a willing immigrant. That's the act of an invader. That's the act of a conqueror. That's him saying, I win, you lose. Here's my flag. Here's the country I really love. Here's my nationality. And there is nothing you or anybody else in America can do about it. That's what that is. That's what that is. And what this episode now shows, and I'm being very candid with you, is that our immigration laws are broken. Our borders are broken. And we are essentially an independent country in name only. Because you can come into this country in a caravan illegally with the eyes of the world press and media on you, documenting as you literally go from town to town, city to city. And you can mark down, just one by a countdown, the days until you get to our border, and then you just cross. You just cross, or you claim asylum. We have now been rendered a paper tiger on the world stage. And what is even more insulting, and all of you need to know this, you need to know this, in the latest budget passed by the Republicans and Democrats, Paul Ryan's budget, that was signed by President Trump, they sent millions, in fact, hundreds of millions of dollars to countries all over the world, from Jordan to Egypt to Turkey, you name it, to allow them to enforce their borders. So we are sending our foreign aid to other countries around the world so they can secure and protect their borders. But our borders remain essentially wide open. Wide open. And when an invasion comes, out of 800 of these illegal immigrants, only 11 are arrested. This is the seminal issue of our time. I have to talk about Iran. Iran's a very important topic. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, a war in the Middle East. Mueller, you have a special counsel who's gunning for the president, who could impeach the president potentially or indict the president, plunging us into a constitutional crisis. I have to cover these stories. They're big stories. But this is more basic and this is more fundamental. This is an invasion. And let me sum it up to you in this way. A nation is a home. Really, life is not that complicated. And public policy, the elites want you to think it's very complicated so ordinary people can understand it. No, it's very simple. A nation is a home. We as Americans are a family. And what the elites are telling us, what the Democrats are telling us, what the mainstream media is telling us, and now what the illegal immigrants themselves are telling us, what this caravan told us, is that we are allowed to come into your home whether you like it or not. They are squatting in our home. And so if you leave your door unlocked, and that's what we've done, leave your front door unlocked and wide open, what kind of people do you think you're going to get coming into your house? If I told you that I leave my door not just unlocked but wide open with a big sign saying to everybody, come on in, raid my fridge, raid my medicine cabinet, sleep in my bed, squat in my basement, live rent-free or just live in my house, watch television all day, what would you say? You would call, and you would rightly call, Child Services, or in this case, DCF, and say, he's putting his kids in danger, in jeopardy. He's putting his wife in jeopardy. Because what he's doing is he's potentially inviting drug dealers, drug addicts, murderers, criminals, rapists, gangs, strangers into his house who could molest or murder his children or rape and assault and kill his wife, never mind himself. They would take away my family from me or my kids, saying I'm a negligent parent. That's what we're doing to our country. And these illegal immigrants are squatters. And what they're telling us is, you don't have a right to prevent us from coming into your home. We can cross your property. That's what a border is the property lines to your house. What a border patrol agent is the locks on your door. Now, some people you invite to your house. Some people you allow to come in. Others you say, yes, this is my son or my daughter's boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. They're very serious. They're about to get married. They're engaged. And soon they're going to become part of our family. And then they're always welcome at my house. But notice, when that happens, and that's immigration, when you extend or expand the family, does the family member come in and taunt you? Does he come in and tell you how you should eat, how you should cook your dinners, when you should go to sleep, when you should watch TV, what you should do in your own house? No. The family member is respectful, is humble, is grateful, is thankful. There's love. He's not there to impose his or her ways on you. He's there to blend in with you in your home. Why? Because it's your home. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. They're coming in and they're telling us now to our face, I am a Honduran. This is my flag, this is my anthem, and there's nothing that you can do to stop me. It's an invasion, and nobody's repelling them. And let me just say this, my friends. I think of all of the despicable media outlets in this country, and you know I can't stand CNN because they're all a bunch of liars, and MSNBC because they're all a bunch of fanatical leftists and liars. There is so much fake news. But the worst of the worst, to me, is Univision. That is out and out a propaganda outlet for the Mexican government. They are fifth columnists in America acting on behalf of the Mexican government and Mexican interests. You want to talk about a fifth column? Univision is the very definition of it. And what is to me disgusting is that you have Russia Today, RT, now has to register that TV station, which I don't watch. I don't really care for RT, but let that go. They have to register as a foreign agent. But Univision, by the way, RT, it's all in English. They're not speaking Russian. They're all speaking English. Univision, it's all in Espanol. It's all in Spanish, based out of Miami. How come they don't have to register as a foreign agent? And of all of the cheap propagandists on behalf of the Mexican government, The chief top propagandist, the Joseph Goebbels of Univision, has to be Jorge Ramos. So Jorge Ramos, who has this popular, whatever, night show, whatever it is, news program on Univision, a lot of the Latinos, especially the illegals in America, love this guy. Well, no wonder. He's always advocating for them. Listen to him on Tucker Carlson last night. Listen to this. Saying the country that's to blame is us. We're too intolerant. We're too hostile. We're creating a dangerous nation. Listen to this. For the illegals in America. Roll it, Jared.
I think the United States is becoming a hostile, even dangerous country for refugees and for immigrants. And I think we have a long tradition of being generous, of accepting other immigrants from countries where they're fleeing violence and poverty and lack of democracy. I think that's precisely what the United States is. And at the end, Tucker, I think it's simply a matter of deciding what kind of country do we want to be. And it seems at this point that we're talking about only a few hundred refugees, and putting it in context, from the 65 million refugees that there are in the world, the United States accepted only 84,000 in 2016, and with President Trump, it's going to be even less. So it's simply a matter of deciding what kind of country do we want to be.
What kind of a country do we want to be? This guy's incredible. No, really, honestly. He's an American citizen. He's also a Mexican citizen. He's admitted this. In fact, he admitted it last night on the show. He is a dual citizen who, listen to this, still often goes to Mexico and actually admits he votes in the Mexican elections. So he's both Mexican and American. So I want you to think about this. Here you have a Mexican citizen who votes in Mexican elections, who is a shill for the Mexican government, and he's lecturing us on what kind of country we should be, and that somehow we're nasty and bigoted and mean-spirited because we won't take in the entire world? Hey, Jorge, baby, why doesn't Mexico take him in? Why? Mexico, the last time I checked, was a democracy. You guys have a tradition of taking people in. Tell me, Jorge, they're all seeking asylum. How come Mexico is not good enough for them? How come it's always got to be us, Uncle Sucker? My friends, enough is enough. And one word, I have one line to tell Jorge Ramos. Very simple, and I can't believe Tucker didn't say it. If he won't say it, I will. Jorge, America, love it or leave it. If we're so intolerant, if we're so racist, take your ass right back to Mexico. 225 here on the great WRKO. Okay, 617-266-6868 is the number. As always, you can text us at 68. Sorry, that used to be 680-680. No, now you can text us at WRKO, whatever your message is, 7470, 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, I'm sick of it. Put the fire hoses on these illegals in that caravan and spray the rubber bullets. Unless Trump acts affirmatively to stop this invasion instead of helping to enable it, he invites the very quote-unquote blue wave in November that will impeach him. Well, I agree with you, 617, but it's too late. I mean, they're in. Or some are in and the rest are all being processed. So, listen now, but I want you to listen to the nonstop propaganda on behalf of this caravan of illegals by Jorge Ramos. Listen to this. So he now goes back and forth with Tucker Carlson. Tucker reveals to him, he knows it, but he's lying, that they've now arrested at least one MS-13 gangbanger who had infiltrated this illegal caravan, and he admitted to being a member of MS-13. And God knows if he admitted it, how many others could be potential MS-13 gangbangers. Roll it, Jared.
Stevens, what do you know about
them? We talk to them because we have reporters talking to them because we know who they are. We talk in Spanish every single day with them. We've been following them for 25 days. That's why we know who they are. That's why we know that they're not criminals and terrorists and that they're not rapists. That's why we know who they are.
Did you talk to the one who was a member of MS-13 who was caught last week, who admitted he was a member of MS-13? What did he say when you talked to him?
Well, I haven't talked to him. And again, if you want to criminalize the whole group simply because of one person,
he said he was a member.
Source. But if you want to criminalize everyone, you can
Stop
do that.
the word tsunami for 2 seconds.
That's not a
all right. Yeah, kind of country. Right. It's the Mexican citizen lecturing me about what kind of country America is. I love that.
I mean, have you noticed that? He's completely right. So you have this shill for the Mexican government who votes in Mexican elections. And now, well, we're starting to nail some MS-13 guys. We're starting to find that at least one, probably more, are within that caravan. Jorge, you've been with them for 6 months, Jorge. Your reporters have been covering them every day, Jorge. Yeah, how come you don't want to comment on that, Jorge? You see, Mexico has an MS-13 gang problem. They want to send that El Norte. El Salvador has an MS-13 problem. They want to send that El Norte. They want to dump their poor, their criminals, and their gangbangers for us to deal with them. And that liar on Univision is enabling it and inviting it every step of the way. Linda, you're up next in Medford. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, hello. I have 2 quick points to make.
Yes, go ahead,
And the
Linda.
first one is on our president. All he needs to do to end this foolishness is say, it's so unfortunate that these questions were leaked, but obviously we can't use them. So why don't you identify and prosecute the leaker, and then we can proceed. That's number one. Number two, I think we have to stop thinking of Mexico as our friend. They're very familiar because we share borders and so forth. But I don't think, if you look at the history, that they are our friend, and that they should not be allowing these people undocumented coming here illegally by protecting them crossing Mexico. If we did that to, say, Canada, I'm sure there'd be a big squawk on our northern border.
Linda, you are 1,000% correct on Mexico. For the last 150 years, Mexico has been an anti-American enemy, an opponent of the United States. For example, I could give you example after example. They wanted to ally with the Germans in World War I against us. Their regime, the government, through public schools in Mexico, teaches all Mexican children that the entire American Southwest belongs to Mexico and was stolen by us in the Mexican War, the American-Mexican War of 1848. They openly called, their words, not mine, for la reconquista, the reconquest of the entire American Southwest. They want California, they want Texas, they want Arizona, they want New Mexico, they want it all. So, if a foreign government throughout its history has allied against your mortal enemies and openly calls to annex a good chunk of your country, is that a friend or is that an enemy? In my book, that's an enemy, but that's just me. Instead, we're inviting them in. 617-266-6868. I promise I'll take more of your calls, and I've got some stunning audio for you as well next. But first, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is letting the staffers at the State Department know it's time to get their swagger back. Nick Bovey is in the WRKO newsroom. Nick, I'm just curious, what does Pompeo mean by swagger? 2:36 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends, so we now have at least, at absolute minimum, 13 million illegal immigrants in our country. I think the figure, frankly, is much higher. I think it's closer to 30 or 40 million, but let that go. Let's go very conservative. we have at least 13 million illegals in our country. The overwhelming majority, these are government statistics, it's not an opinion, it's a fact. The overwhelming majority are low-skilled, low-educated. Most of them are on some kind of government assistance, whether it be Medicaid, food stamps, welfare, Section 8 housing, whatever it is. Most of them are collecting some form of welfare. We also have a country now that is admitting 1 million immigrants a year. Every year, we're admitting 1 million. Almost all of them from third world countries. Most of them are coming in illegally through our border with Mexico. And so here you have Jorge Ramos, who to me is a clear fifth columnist and a traitor, working on behalf of the Mexican government through Univision, defending now this Central American caravan, which has now essentially crossed into the United States. Some have just run in. They're just literally crossed. Others are being processed as I speak for asylum. They've already been told they can stay until they go to their court date in 2 or 3 years. You're never going to see them. So the caravan has now essentially come, and now it's crossed. The invaders are now here. Not only is Jorge Ramos telling us that we are a mean-spirited, hostile country, and that we should decide what kind of a country we should be, because according to him, we're not compassionate unless we allow in the entire third world. But on top of it, he says not only should we allow these immigrants to come in, these illegals, because they have a right to come in, and we don't have a right to stop them, but because we are to blame. How are we to blame, according to Jorge? And by the way, the radical left always makes this argument. Because of our rampant drug use. That's right. Because millions of Americans use cocaine, opiates, heroin, whatever. And so they consume the drugs that's made in Central and South America. And it's these drug wars and these drug cartels that have displaced people and unleashed violence and murder, forcing them to come all the way up El Norte into the United States. So, if Americans weren't using drugs, these illegals allegedly wouldn't be crossing our border. So when you say you don't want them to come, you have no right to say so because you are to blame. America is to blame. He's blaming the victim. Roll it, Jared.
It's happening simply because there are more than 25 million Americans who use illegal drugs, and we're also responsible for everything that's happening in this hemisphere.
We're going to blame the junkies. So Mexico sends in fentanyl, heroin. Yes, it does. Mexico is now the largest manufacturer of crystal meth. We used to make it ourselves. Now they make it. They kill tens of thousands of Americans every year, and those families are the ones responsible.
U.S. citizens, 25 million U.S. citizens who are consumers of drugs. We're also responsible for that violence.
Oh, we're responsible for heroin addiction. So someone who's taking heroin, he's responsible. The junkie living on the street is responsible for these people being here. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that when you have about 25 million U.S. citizens who use illegal drugs, it has consequences in the whole hemisphere. Drugs are coming from Colombia and Peru, crossing Central America and Mexico. And the violence that is happening in those places is also partly responsible for the consumers in this country.
Oh, I understand. So 60,000 people die of drug ODs last year. Most of those drugs came from Mexico, but it's our fault. So not only do we have to drop our borders, ignore our own laws, take any poor person around the world who wants to come here, but we have to do it because we're immoral, because we're dying of drug ODs? That's the argument, really?
Yes.
So you think that the U.S. and the U.S. consumers have absolutely no responsibility for the drug wars in Mexico, in Colombia, in Peru, and in Central America? They're completely linked. Absolutely, they're completely linked. And guess what? Not only that, how about the guns and the rifles being used by drug traffickers? Where do you think they get those?
It's funny. Typically, when you're trying to get someone to do something nice for you, like taking all your poor people?
So yes, there's responsibility, and we in the United States, we have responsibility responsibility for the things that are
What do you
happening
mean,
in our
You're a Mexican
hemisphere.
citizen. You voted the Mexican presidential election. I just find it amazing that you can demand compassion
I'm
from Americans.
I'm also a U.S. citizen.
I guess, but you voted in the Mexican election, so I mean, it's not...
I voted in the Mexican election, and I voted in the U.S. election. I know it's confusing for you, but that's what happens. And there are millions of people around the world with dual citizenship. I'm just one of them.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. Look, I mean, where do I begin? Honestly, where do you begin? Blame America, right? It's always blame. It's not America first. It's blame America first. So I thought Tucker hit the nail on the head. Normally, call me crazy, but when you want somebody to do something nice for people, you don't stand there and spit in their face. Instead of saying, you Americans are to blame. You're all a bunch of drug addicts. You're all a bunch of junkies. You're financing all these drug wars. You're selling the drug cartels all these guns. Instead, why don't you try to appeal to, I don't know, compassion, take pity on the poor, whatever. So they're spitting in our face. And look at this freaking ingrate. I got to watch my language. Look at this freaking ingrate. Let me tell you something. I came to this country first in 1994. I was a graduate student at Ohio University, and then permanently in 2000. I have not voted in a Canadian election, and you can check this out, for the last 20 years. I'm still a Canadian citizen. And I still, to be fair, I have a Canadian passport. Why? When I visit my family up in Canada, it's just easier at the border to give them a Canadian passport. It's just for convenience sake. I have not voted in a Canadian election in over 20 years. There were numerous elections. In fact, I was asked to vote, or whatever, to register to vote. And I said no. Even though I only became a naturalized American in 2016, just in time to cast my first vote, thank you, Jesus, for Donald J. Trump. Why? Because when I came to this country the second time, and the permanent time, in 2000, I made a decision along with my wife. I wanted to become an American. I wasn't going to have dual loyalty. This was the country that had given me a job. This was the country that had given me a career. And eventually this country would give me not one, but two beautiful children that we adopted. Okay? Through Utah, but let that go. And my loyalty has always been with America. And that's why I don't vote in Canadian elections. Because I put that behind me. Nothing against Canada. I love Canada. I love my former Canadians. I love them. But I have become now an American. That was the plan. That's what I did. This is what the country, I believe, demanded of me. And this is what I should give to the country that has been so good to me, to my wife, to my children, and to my family. And I'll never forget this. When I was actually at my final interview, my naturalization interview, I asked the person interviewing me, so am I going to have to renounce my Canadian citizenship now that I become American? Because I was ready to do it. He said, oh no. He goes, no, you can keep your Canadian citizenship. You can keep your Canadian passport. You can have dual citizenship. You could have dual passports. You could have 3 passports. You could have 3 citizenships. And he thought that was a mark of pride for America. And I said, look, can I be honest with you? Look, I'm not an American citizen yet. I will be soon, God willing. I'm not going to tell you what to do in your own country, but I wouldn't allow it. He was like stunned. He goes, why? Because this is a republic. And I think that to be a citizen of this republic, you should not have conflicting or dual loyalties. I don't. I honestly don't. I think that this country should demand, ultimately, when you come into America, you become a citizen, you are only pledging allegiance to one nation, one people, and one power, the United States of America. That's why I have never voted in a Canadian election, because my past is there, my present and my future is here. For this ingrate and this fifth columnist to stand there and say, oh, it's legal. Who cares if it's legal? The question is it moral? Is it right? Is it ethical? He's playing both sides. And not only is he playing both sides, this is the key point. He is actually supporting his country, and Mexico really is his country. He's supporting them in an invasion against the country that took him in. He's playing for the opposition team against the home team. By the way, the home team that gave him a career, that gave him he makes millions of dollars a year, that gave him the opportunity to showcase his alleged broadcast skills. How come he's not broadcasting in Mexico City? How come he's not broadcasting in Tijuana? How come he's not broadcasting in Cancun? Oh no, he comes to America and he goes to Miami. And not only will this guy broadcast in English, he's got to do it in Espanol with millions and millions of viewers every night. And he still sides with Mexico and illegals and the Mexicans against his own country that has been so good to him? I'm just being honest with you. The guy's a freaking ingrate. He's scum. He's a fifth columnist scumbag. That's what he is. And he stands there that, oh, it's legal. It's legal. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to say this. I've said it for many years, and I'm going to say it again. Americans are too good. Americans are too tolerant. I'm telling you. This guy comes here, calls you racist, bigots, spits in your face, advocates for a foreign government, advocates for an invasion of your country. You make him a superstar. You give him a career he could never have in Mexico. You've made him rich beyond his dreams. And he still dumps on the United States of America and dumps on all of you. Hey, enough is enough. So let me ask you this, a sincere question. Is it time to end dual citizenship in America? I know we have it. I know it's the law. But should we only have one citizenship? If you're a citizen of America, you should renounce your citizenship to any and all other countries in the world. Number one. And number two, shouldn't somebody tell Jorge Ramos, America, love it or leave it? Either your allegiance is to Mexico or your allegiance is to America, but it can't be to both. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868, or am I the last American left? 2:53 here on the great WRKO. You know, my friends, Jorge Ramos, this has been well documented. Not only always votes in the Mexican elections, he's got a big swanky pad in Mexico. Believe me, he's got a beautiful second residence there. He often travels there. He often hangs around there. And, you know, Jared made a very good point to me off air that maybe his staunch support for the Mexican government and for illegal immigration may be a little bit more nefarious. What is it, Jared?
I would not be surprised at all if somewhere back in Mexico there's a few pistolas or machetes around his family from those cartels, forcing him to be their puppet in the U.S., shall we say.
To toe the line, as they say.
Yeah, toe the line or, slicey, bang, bang.
Larry, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, Larry.
Mr. Jeff, good afternoon, sir.
Larry, how are you?
How are you? Very good, sir. I just wanted to make a point that the problem, sir, my belief is it's not the people from these nations leaving their nations to want to go to another nation. I think it's this so-called United Nations that's been letting the people down, in all these nations because they're not doing the job. They've been taking all this money and they were nowhere to be found. They created all this mess. Just to give you a good example, Mr. Jeff, we have George Soros, who is a nation, right, on four wheels. So in other words, we have a nation called George Soros with his trillions, who's on four wheels, and he's a socialist, and he goes around and he pays money to do his job. You know what I mean? And to create all these problems. Where is the United Nations to stop George Soros when he robbed the British stock market, when he did all these fraudulent things around the world? Here we are, we're blaming the Mexican people and the Peruvian people and those people and those people. Those people are leaving because the socialists in their countries are removing them.
Brilliant.
They are the ones who taught them how to steal, how to do evil things, and how to leave their country.
Brilliant.
And that is my belief.
Larry, you're 1,000% correct. Thank you for that call. Yes, the drug cartels are very powerful, but what do all these countries have in common? I can run down the list. Mexico, socialist. Guatemala, socialist. El Salvador, socialist. Honduras, socialist. Venezuela, socialist. Cuba, socialist. I could run down the whole list. It's like a plague. No, really, if you want to curse a nation or a people, say, please, God, give them socialism. And that's it. They're finished. And so, notice, Jorge isn't criticizing that. No. He just blames America, and in this case, American drug addicts. See, we're to blame for why all these people are crossing our border illegally. Really, you couldn't make this stuff up. 617-266-6868. Rich in Waltham. You're up next. Go ahead, Rich.
Finally got through. How you doing,
Rich,
Mr.
my buddy? How are you?
I'm well. This is just getting worse and worse, Jeff. I mean, look at this caravan coming over from Central America. A lot of them saying that their sons or whatever are being threatened by these gang members. Well, what are they going to do when they get here and they end up in these? Because they're not going to end up in the communities of Weston and Lexington. They're going to end up in Springfield, Worcester, Lawrence, Chelsea, and guess who's there already? MS-13 gangbangers, right? Do you think they're going to continue north and go to Canada when they start threatening them when they come into this country? Of course not, because they're here to suck off the American nipple of welfare, and they want the handouts. The vast majority of them are here to scam the system and get what they can get for free. And I mean, of course, there's exceptions to the rule, but, they're here for the handouts, and they're bringing their toxic ways with them, and they poison whatever community they end up in. We need to change the laws and stop the flow and stop the bleeding. And I have one message for Jorge Ramos. Adios.
Amen. Amen, Rich. I'm with you all the way, brother. Eddie in Quincy. Go ahead, Eddie.
Jeff, let's start a lottery. How long before the next caravan forms? What do you think? A week? 2 weeks?
Oh, actually, Eddie, they're already coming.
I believe it.
Oh, it's one after another. I mean, come on. I mean, if you're watching in honestly, Eddie, if I was living in that hellhole in Central America and I'm watching El Salvadorian TV, I'm like, honey, get the little bambinos. We're heading El Norte.
Jeff, I'm going to call Mr. Ryan, and thank him for that big tax cut he gave us, because now I can almost pay for all these illegals every year with my taxes.
No, Eddie, I agree with you. And I got to tell you, I look around and notice they're all going to be sent. I guarantee you, it's exactly what Rich said. They're going to go to Worcester. They're going to be sent to Malden. They're going to be sent to Springfield. They're going to be sent to Lawrence. They're going to be sent to Chelsea, Salem, Saugus, Revere, Lynn. None of them are going to be sent to Wellesley or Newton or Brookline, or let's say in California, in Malibu or Beverly Hills. So, I would make one deal with the open borders people. Honest to God. I'd say, you want them? Fine. Honestly, fine. Here, Trump, sign the executive order. But send them only in the wealthy 1% zip codes. Let all these limousine liberals who live in segregated neighborhoods, you live with these illegals. And you'll see within a year, my friends, forget a wall. I'm not kidding. They're going to want to put the entire U.S. military on the southern border. You phonies, you frauds, you. I gotta go. If you can't beat them, join them. Hasta la vista, everybody. Adios.
The Kuhner Report is powered by Kelly Financial Services. 888-800-1881. Get the peace of mind that you deserve at Kelly Financial Services. The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 100.7 WZLX HD2 Boston, an iHeart radio station.